you have a problem that money can solve, you don't have a problem. It's a heck of a provocative statement, isn't it? And who am I to say something like that? Well, fortunately for me, it's not my statement. It's a quote that's attributed to John Paul Getty. And in his day, he was one of the wealthiest people in the world. He built Getty Oil from a tiny, tiny company into one of the most valuable companies in the world. And it's easy for a billionaire to say, you know, well, if you got a problem that money can solve, you know, you just throw money at it, you don't have a problem. You know, most of us aren't cut from that cloth. I certainly am not cut from that cloth. But I think it's a wake-up call for all of us that, you know what, the money challenges in our life, those can be some of the easiest challenges to face. There's other challenges in our lives that are much, much harder. Let's go for a walk and I'll share what I mean by this. You know, for most of us, if we're financially not where we want to be yet, if we have aspirations to do better, to make more money, you know, that is a situation that is somewhat in our control. I would argue largely in our control. Certainly there are some systemic issues in the United States that make it harder for people, some people to succeed, right? There is some racism still in the United States. There's social immobility in the United States, right? If you were born in the lower quintile or the middle quintile, it's certainly a lot harder to get into the upper quintile. But today's video is really about talking about our mental attitude and what we can do to improve our situation and to put ourselves in a situation where the money problems seem like the simple problems and we can focus on the problems that frankly don't have easier solutions. You know, maybe there's a challenge in your family, you and a family member don't get along, or one of your family members has a serious health issue, or you have a serious health issue. You know, if only we could pay our way out of those problems, but unfortunately we can't, right? So if you stay to the end, you know, I say that all of us spend time in the crucible. And the crucible is, you know, when life's not going our way and we're facing challenges. And none of us get through life unscathed, right? It's part of what it means to be human. And it sucks when you're in the crucible, but I think it also forges you into the person that you become. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to share with you a little bit about John Paul Getty's background in his time in the crucible. He had a lot of money, but it doesn't mean he had an easy life. So, you know, what can we do to get the financial aspects in order so we can spend time on the things that we want to spend time on, building relationships, doing things that bring us joy, having adventures in our life. And I think that there's two key things that I want to share with you. The first one is putting your mental state in a positive frame of mind for as much of the day, for as much of the week, for as much of the year as you can. And I like to just constantly be swimming in a world of positivity. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. Anytime I have free time, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm listening to Audible books. And if I find a topic that I'm super interested in, I might even take a course that might cost me $500, $1,000 or more, particularly I don't pay for information, right? Like my YouTube channel is about information. I'm sharing information. And hopefully through this information, you're keeping the things that resonate with you and you're transforming your life. But there are courses that say, you know, if you want to be a coder, you know, you go to a coding boot camp. The goal there is to transform your life, to become a coder at the end of that. Or if you're going through sales training, maybe you've got a job and you're successful at it from a sales standpoint, but you want to be more successful. The reason that you pay thousands of dollars for a sales course as opposed to just listening to a podcast or watch YouTube videos is you want to transform your life, right? So I surround myself with positivity as much of the day as I can. And, you know, probably, frankly, part of the reason for that is I did grow up in a lower, I was certainly above the poverty line, but lower middle class. Neither of my parents ever made more than twice the minimum wage. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. So I have to constantly do things to keep my head in the right space. I like to think of myself as a very positive person. I generally go to bed looking forward to tomorrow, and I wake up the next day eager for the day. And that's kind of my goal. And I know that's a gift of mine. It's not, that doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. But I think that there's things we can do to make it more likely to be in that situation. And I think one of those is just surrounding yourself with positivity. Again, podcasts, audibles, YouTube channels. Hopefully my channel is one of those. And all of that stuff is either free or very inexpensive. By the way, I think books are one of the best gifts to society. Think about it. Somebody spends years researching a subject, and for $20 or $30, we can buy their book. And I'll let you know a secret. On Audible, if you buy enough credits, typically a dozen, it's under $10 a credit. Now, this is not a sponsored channel. Jeff Bezos, if you want to sponsor my channel, I'd love to have Audible as a sponsor. But I think it's one of the secrets in life is these Audible books. They're super inexpensive. They're super convenient to listen to. But again, surrounding yourself with positivity, and that includes your friends too. They say we become the average of the 6 people that we hang around with the most. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It certainly was for me. And then, you know, also, unfortunately, there is some structural, systemic things that make it harder for us to stay in a positive attitude. And I get that certain classes, certain societal, social economic segments, certain races in the United States have a harder time because there's some systemic hurdles in your way. And I certainly don't want to diminish that. I do understand that, and I do believe in that. And I think I've been very privileged in my life to have some mentors and some friends that have helped me. And then frankly, being the majority race also helps. So enough on that. But I do want to share that, you know, one of my goals in this channel is to help people do the things that we can control to become the best version of ourselves. And I don't want to be prescriptive. I'm not saying what that best version is. You decide on that. But hopefully my channel can play a role in motivating you and giving you some things to think about and some cost-effective tools to help you on that journey. And then the other thing I want to share is, you know, not just investing in your mental attitude, but also in your physical health, because I think your physical health and your mental attitude go hand in hand. And, you know, it's certain, life is busy, life is challenging. It's hard to take the time to eat in a healthy way, to work out regularly. But I really want to encourage you to do that. I think the time that you spend is going to be given back to you in multiples later in life. You know, unfortunately, if you're 60 years old, you only have 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time in front of you. So stay healthy so you can take full advantage of those years when you get there. Okay, I promise to wrap up with why I think John Paul Getty said the thing that he did. Before I get there, I haven't asked you for my favorite yet, which is kind of the currency for watching the video. As the kids say, thumbs for likes, subs for love, and comments for me, Azul. I love reading the comments. If you hadn't hit the like button yet, please go ahead and do. Okay, so the story of John Paul Getty, you know, unfortunately his grandson was kidnapped on a trip in Europe and was held for ransom. I think initially they wanted $17 million, and this was in the late 50s, early 60s. They wanted $17 million, the kidnappers, and John Paul Getty decided to negotiate with them. And so John Paul Getty made a lowball offer. I don't know what he offered. But what he got in return from the kidnappers, and this is, you know, I shouldn't be smiling. This is super, super sad and super scary, I'm sure, for the grandson. But the kidnappers sent John Paul Getty his grandson's ear back in response to that offer. And ultimately his grandson was released, but he suffered from post-traumatic stress. We have a term for it now, post-traumatic stress, and that led to him abusing drugs and alcohol. And shortly after being released, he had a really bad stroke that they say is related to that, and was disabled for much of his life. So, like I said, none of us get through life unscathed, and I think John Paul Getty's quote comes from that situation. And then, you know, his family members said he was a really tough person, and people didn't like being with him. And I think that led for him to realize that, you know, what he had in enormous excess was money, but what he didn't have was compassion and friends and relationships. And so that's where I think that quote came from. If you enjoyed today's video, I know you're going to enjoy this video over here, which talks about the average income for people 65 and older. And this video down here that talks about 5 reasons you should think about retiring as soon as you can. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.